Welcome back to the 1009 podcast. Another jam-packed weekend of college football, major upsets, top 10 teams making statements, top 10 teams not making statements, and another great Sunday of NFL football. Carolina Panthers do not exist still, but I didn't get to watch all that much this weekend. I had my family golf tournament, which also did not exist for me, but I was able to catch up on some condensed games and highlights, stuff like that, and of course other podcasts and stuff like that. But it's another duo podcast. We just me and Grayson. Little throwback to earlier on when we were getting going, but yeah, that's it. It's another weekend in the books, really.
Yeah, we'll make sure to cover all the big ones still, even without Jacob and BZ this time around. But yeah, we might as well start where pretty much all of college football was focused Saturday, and that was in Knoxville. Instant classic, one of the better QB games ever, honestly. That's two guys just absolutely dueling. If Bryce Young was hurt, he did a really bad job of showing it because he honestly outplayed Hooker. Young at 90% loses that game by 2 touchdowns. He dragged that team to that field goal attempt that went wide, and then obviously Hooker brought him right down the field and kicked the game-winning field goal. So
I mean, if he wasn't playing, with how quick Tennessee got out to a lead in that game,
it would have been
it would have been a dog walking pretty much.
Over. Yeah, absolutely. It would have been honest. 3-4 TDs not out of the question. It took everything to keep up with them.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree with Tennessee at 3. I know it's the what have you done for me lately? Big hype, most prettiest win recently.
Right.
I remember texting y'all. I was right before the rankings came out. I said I bet it's going to be Georgia, Ohio. Well, I said Ohio State, Georgia, Tennessee, Michigan, us. But I had forgotten that Ohio State was on a bye, so I was like, oh yeah, flip flop. Georgia and Ohio State, which the AP has been pretty predictable, depending on at least the top 5, top 6.
Yeah, any SEC team does anything, whether it's credible or not. Ole Miss is in the top 10 for why? For what reason? Certainly Tennessee's done more to deserve what they have gotten from the poll than teams like Ole Miss have. But it was A&M at first, and then it was Kentucky, and now it's Ole Miss, and then Tennessee at least proved it to some extent Saturday. This is an Alabama team that's been skating by for a month now. They should have lost in College Station. They were, I hate to say it like this, but Quinn Ewers plays second half of that Texas game. I don't think we see 2 undefeated teams in Knoxville Saturday. So, you can't really bank on the what ifs, and Alabama did escape, as we've seen them do on the road several times, and then they went into the best team on their schedule, most likely, and they got beat. So, I'm not stunned, I wouldn't say. I didn't think this Tennessee team really would. 52 points is the most Saban's ever given up. So, it's. Yeah, I did not expect that.
It doesn't help when you got a wide receiver going for 5 touchdowns on 6 receptions.
Yeah, that was some Randy Moss type stuff with the stat line.
And he made it out of Columbia, South Carolina, without going to either Clemson or South Carolina.
Exactly. He doesn't come close to hype wise, but that stat line is Zion worthy. How in the world does this kid get out of the state? And obviously, we didn't build him big enough house, but it just kind of makes you wonder, as good as we are on the recruiting trail, and South Carolina might have some semblance of a relevant program soon-ish, maybe. To let him slip from both of those programs is pretty surprising, given how good he is.
And that goes to show you how picking up Antonio Williams for Clemson this year was huge, because he's already balling out this year, as we saw.
He's our best receiver, honestly. And we'll get there. But biggest thing about this Tennessee Bama game was Alabama was the most undisciplined team in the country. They have 66 penalties through 7 games? That's the most in the FBS. That's 131 teams in that FBS category. They had 17 for 130 yards on Saturday. That just can't happen.
I think a Nick Saban coach team would be like that. And I know there's probably plenty of Bama fans that are out there claiming, they're trying to screw us. You've been getting calls for the past 12 years.
Yeah, welcome to a fair whistle. I don't want to hear that crap. I don't. I really don't. Hendon Hooker literally handed them a touchdown.
Yeah.
And
And
they
there's a
could not
bunch
hold
of
on to a lead with 7 minutes left. So no, I don't want to hear that at
pre-snap
all.
penalties. Like you can't blame the refs for pre-snap penalties, ugly
No.
pass interferences, stuff like that. Unsportsmanlike conducts. Like they're not they're not as good as they. I was listening to a podcast today, and someone said that the dynasty is falling, which he did correct. Like he didn't mean like necessarily they're going to suck forever. He just means that teams are starting to catch up with Alabama.
I mean, I
In
think
the past
that's
couple, yeah. I mean, look at the Georgias, look at the Clemsons, look at the Ohio States, the one and dones with like LSU. Teams can come up and sneak out and get some wins over Alabama, unlike when they were winning two titles every 3 years, stuff like that. Which I mean, they're very capable of doing the same thing still, but
right.
you're starting to see teams catch up to them.
I mean, my big thing is, do they even have a 15-0 season?
Not anymore.
I don't think they have. I mean, ever.
No,
Like they
the only
always
two
lose
are Clemson
one.
and LSU.
Right. They always lose a game. It's just
Yeah,
not usually these games. It's the weird ones on the road, dynamic QB like Manziel, something like that. Ole Miss beat them like twice in a row back in the day.
yeah.
It's these big games is where they're at their best. And when we see them not, that's when you start thinking sky is falling. But I promise you, this Alabama team's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
As long as Nick
They're
Saban's
just
coaching, I don't care if they have 17 flags a week. He will coach around it somehow because that's just
yeah.
how good he's been there. So, I mean,
They just
they're
don't have near as good wide receivers as they've had in the past couple of years either.
no.
So
And
that's
Jahmyr
killing them
Gibbs,
too.
I don't know how in the hell Georgia Tech ever had him in the building for a visit as good as he is. That's stunning to me. I mean, they've got talent on that team, but he looked incredible. So, I mean, I don't know how they managed to reel him in at least initially, but yeah, I mean, this is
Oh, I can't. Not Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech ain't got the money to do it.
no. But I mean, yeah, I think it's only shocking because we see Bama in these huge regular season matchups with Georgia, with an LSU, and it's always you kind of expect Saban to win, especially against a second, third year coach in Josh Heupel. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's the big reason, just because of the magnitude of the game and how good Saban's been in these games, that we're starting to think doomsday is approaching. When in reality, they're still probably going to be in Atlanta. Mississippi
Yeah.
State lost Kentucky. That really hurt them.
I
That's
don't
an
see them
upcoming
losing to
date.
Ole Miss. Yeah.
No,
Ole Miss is
absolutely
not
not.
that good.
No,
They're
they're
number
not.
7 or whatever they are, but they're not that good.
They're playing LSU this weekend. Look out.
Yes.
That
And
I'm telling you.
that's a team that people gave up on completely.
Right?
And
Absolutely. Exactly.
I mean they're not blowing teams out, but they're just
No, but I think
they're winning
Brian Kelly
games.
might be. This is Twitter, obviously, but one of the first one in a long time to win at Auburn and at Florida, which are two programs not featured in the AP poll. But I mean, it's on
Still
the road in the
something.
SEC. Yeah,
Yeah.
that game's in Baton Rouge too.
Yeah.
LSU looking at a 1.5 favorite right now. That's
Hmm.
the 3:30 spot on CBS this weekend, so that will certainly make the slate show in some capacity. But yeah, I'm telling you that Ole Miss 7-0 dream start might come
Yeah.
crashing down in Death Valley.
Speaking of dream starts, we got the front runner for the Heisman. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I said it. I
Michigan's
said that
running back is
it's
close, but it's Hendon Hooker. Like Caleb
right, and
Williams
I
is
said
there,
it.
but
I said, to this point on paper, sure, but if you think only on paper matters, then where the hell's Drake May in all this? Because
yeah,
he's where he should be, outside looking in, because of who it's been against. And Hooker went out Saturday and just absolutely lit up Alabama. So he is firmly in that conversation now. I still think if they voted today, it'd be Stroud, but he's got a date with Penn State coming up as well as Michigan at the end of the year, like always. So he'll also have two big chances to prove it, like we just saw Hooker do. So
yeah.
I think right now it's Stroud and then probably Hooker at 2, and then
I keep forgetting about Stroud, to be honest. I don't like Ohio State hasn't done much of anything this year, but they've just
no,
won. Like I mean, granted they
right,
haven't played many
convincingly.
teams. I forget.
And that most of it without Jackson Smith and Jigba too, which is terrifying
Yeah,
because Marvin Harrison Jr. is looking like the best wide receiver in the country. They've got another one whose name escapes me, but that duo, let alone trio when Smith and Jigba comes back, is just absolutely incredible.
I can't think of the guy either. I can picture him, but I can't think of him.
Yeah. I mean, And to their credit, a little bit, teams like Michigan State, who are expected to be good, are horrible. And
Yeah.
they handled them. They took care of them, beat them. I think they beat them by like 40, 30 points. So there's something to be said for that, the schedule in August looked a lot better than it does now. And, Ohio State can't really control that, unfortunately.
Yeah. And speaking of teams Ohio State plays and will play both of these teams, Michigan, they look good. They they gave they put it to Penn State 41-17 in the Big House. I mean, they were just running the ball at will against James Franklin and the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I mean, on the ground, Michigan is a team of 418 rushing yards. That's 7.6 a carry against the Penn State team with one of the top run defenses coming in, I'm pretty sure. And I mean, I think the
That's
biggest
Big
takeaway
Ten
from
football.
this is when the hell is James Franklin going to win one of these games? I mean, ever. He's now 0-10 against the top 10 since 2016.
Has to next week.
They're just stuck in this mud where they bubble up, they get in the top 10, and they see one of these elite Big Ten teams, and they get embarrassed every single time. And with what they're paying him, what the expectations are at that program historically, I mean, we give Jimbo crap every week. I mean, he might be doing better off than Franklin as far as, I mean, he at least kept Alabama nervous for 3 hours. I mean, Penn State had a lead for a minute. It was pretty fluky, a pick six off a helmet. Um, they were up 14-13, I think, and they lost 41-17. So, I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
it's another embarrassing data point on the resume for James Franklin. I mean, Sean Clifford, neither quarterback did a whole lot, honestly, because it was a huge running back show. Corum, 166 yards and 2 TDs on 28 carries. And then his running mate in the backfield, Edwards, had another 173 yards and 2 touchdowns of his own. So it was all on the ground for both sides, honestly. But Michigan, with the upper hand, certainly in the trenches, that O-line is looking
Yeah.
absolutely elite.
Yeah. I hinted at it a little bit ago, but I mean, that's Big Ten football. You got a good O lineman and a stud running back. You're going to run all over a defense. And you
Right.
don't need a great quarterback to lead you to any much of anything, like because
No, you really don't.
It's McNamara that's been playing, right?
JJ McCarthy.
McCarthy, McNamara, Ems, whatever their names are, but
Yeah.
I mean neither one of them has done anything crazy to. I mean that's why he had the whole one starts one game, one starts another situation to
Right.
start the season. So I mean, as long as they're able to run the ball, do it. They're gonna win.
Yeah. I mean, Stroud's a luxury, not a requirement. I mean, Ohio State could do the same thing. They've just had a history of dynamic QBs, really throughout the last, we'll say, playoff era at least, where they've had, QBs that can do it all. But certainly with some of the running backs they've had to come through there, it's not a necessity either. So,
Yeah, Michigan's showing us like it was no fluke last year. We were worried about their defense with how much talent they lost, and I mean they held crap. What is his name? He's been Clifford. Talk
Sean
about a guy
Clifford,
that
yeah.
yeah. Talk about someone that needs to step up.
Yeah.
That dude is. I mean, he'll beat the average teams, beat the bad teams, but then when it comes against a great team, he's a no show.
Right. I mean, it just begs a question, like, is number 10 on the road losing by 4 TDs the ceiling for Penn State under Franklin? I mean,
It seems like it is.
because like I mentioned earlier, they have not beaten a top 10 team in 10 chances in the last 5.5 seasons. I mean, that just, you have to, I mean, I think 1-9 almost looks worse than 0-10 because you get the one, you think, okay, now we can really start taking this next step. And you just get beaten down back to, I mean, they're a very good program, but they're not elite.
Yeah,
They haven't been elite the entire time he was there. They beat Ohio State one time, and I don't even know if they won the Big Ten that year. I mean, it's just,
they did. They did.
they did? Okay.
That was the year they won the Big Ten, and then Ohio State still got into the playoffs.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, winning the conference, certainly an achievement, but
Yeah.
if it's a one-off and this is the average performance, then I mean, he's not in the hot seat. He's not in a warm seat, but that's going to get some whispers started. Then you're not going to
Yeah.
like it. And Ohio State comes into Happy Valley in 2 weeks. And let me tell you what, if this defense doesn't get just absolutely revamped, retooled, whatever you need, they might give up 60 to them.
Yeah. Are they on a bye? Penn State? I think they go on a bye week.
Do they? They might. I know Ohio State was off this week.
Yeah. One of them.
They certainly need it if they are. But yeah, I mean, another team we saw Saturday with a coach that's notorious for his lack of next step advancement is Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State, because it's the same story every single time, every single big game. They look good early. They jumped out, I think, 14-0. I might be getting games mixed up here, but they were up 14 entering the fourth quarter. They had 4 drives in the fourth quarter. 3 were 3-and-outs. And the fourth ended in a pick on a deep shot. So, I mean, it's just –
Yeah.
I know Spencer Sanders was banged up too, but, I mean, we saw this with the pylon last year in the Big 12 championship game, kept them out of the playoff, losing to Baylor. It's every year. Every single year, the teams change, the time of year changes, the pressure doesn't, and the result doesn't. And it's Gundy every single time coming up short.
Yeah. And I mean, that was we're probably going to talk about it. That was probably the Big 12's best hope as a playoff team, unless TCU somehow runs the table.
Right, which is just not going to happen. I realize that Sonny Dykes has that team looking incredibly good through 7 games now. They're 7-0, but I just don't think it's sustainable. I don't even know who's on the schedule. I think it inevitably either their confidence catches up with them or they get somewhere on the road in a tricky spot and they can't, walk down the field late. So, I mean, it's certainly an accomplishment. I mean, double overtime, that's always exciting. Oklahoma State did get the offense going in OT. They traded TDs, and then Oklahoma State kicked the field goal and then gave up a TD to end the game. You have their schedule pulled up?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. It doesn't get too easy next week. They got Kansas State, they're just going about their business with.
The Tulane loss was bad, but that's now a nationally ranked Tulane. So
they're going about their business while Kansas, TCU, Oklahoma State, Texas, they're all having all the hype, and Kansas State's just quietly a ranked team. They could probably bring some trouble. I mean, they still got Texas later on in the year. That's at Texas. Mm-hmm. Texas Tech is sneaky. Baylor can be sneaky. Iowa State can be sneaky. They can
ask them to win every single one of those is a pretty large ask. And I mean, as far as Oklahoma State running the table, being 12-1 as a Big 12 champ, their next 3: home against Texas, at Kansas State, at Kansas,
and then they obviously end in Bedlam, which
it's
a I mean, it's cliche to say, but you throw the rivalry, you throw the records out the window. So
the worst time to play them is when there's nothing to lose, and that's exactly where they're at. So I think the Big 12's dead. I think they are.
Is their best shot a 2-loss Texas team?
Yes, but that's a 2-loss team that will not go above 6, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, you can asterisk the Texas Tech loss all you want, but it happened.
Have you seen? There's been a bunch of FPI stuff having Texas as like the 5th best team, 4th best team. Which, I mean, they showed that they're a good team against Alabama, and if they had a healthy Quinn Ewers, like we mentioned, Alabama was probably not undefeated going into Tennessee.
Yeah, and again, Ewers struggled against Iowa State this past. I mean, they won 24-21. And I don't know if you caught the end of the game. Iowa State had a Hail Mary inside the 15. You think the kid dropped it? I mean, the most wide open you can possibly be. I think he just kind of had his head ahead of his hands. I don't know if he was turning around, looking around or what, but he had it and dropped it, and they would have been squarely in field goal range to send that game into overtime at Texas, mind you. So, I mean, this is an Iowa State team that's got a great defense. They finally got over the hump, beat Iowa, but with how Texas has looked with Ewers, you don't expect 24 points at home from them.
Yeah, I don't know about the Big 12. I mean, not that they've ever put a showing on in the playoffs anyway, so.
No. If Texas had beaten Texas Tech, I would say no, not yet, but it has to be Texas.
Yeah.
Because I think we'll get to Southern Cal too.
Whenever the 12-team playoff comes out.
Whenever the playoff is 200 damn teams, we'll have Texas in, there'll be 3 Big 12 teams in.
This year would be a good year for an 8-team playoff, 6-team playoff. Like,
Right. I've never been opposed to
12 is
6 or to 8, but I think jumping to 12 is a mistake because the first thing that people are going to say about 12 is, well, number 13 at 8-4, they're so good, they're going to have 16. And as long as the TV money is there, they're not going to stop growing it, I don't think, unfortunately. So
yeah,
I think a gradual move to something like 12 was a lot better off, but,
not a
they don't listen to us
balls deep.
comment
Let's
folk.
go.
So, right, because what if you get to 12 and you have these 3 lost teams in there and the product just sucks? I mean, you can't really retract from that effectively. So,
Yeah,
um,
just look what Texas or like Alabama did to Arkansas earlier this year. Like that's what you're gonna get in like the
right,
first
you
rounds.
want 6 of those. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, it's expansion, good. 12, I'm out on
yeah.
it. I mean, you don't have to tell me twice we get more playoff football, but I don't know about tripling the teams when, as Austin Pendergast pointed out, we've had at least one 3-loss team in the top 12 of the final playoff ranking, I believe he was using,
Yeah.
every single year of the playoff era. So, I mean, I think 2 losses is fine for a playoff in a 6 or 8 team scenario, but guaranteeing a
Especially when you have
3-loss team is
a team
just
like
right. A team
Texas
like
next year.
Texas, exactly. I mean, I don't care who's 9-3. You do not deserve for it even a chance to win 4 straight games and win a title. Um,
Yeah.
which another thing, these bottom seeds are not ripping off 4 straight games to win a title.
No,
It's just not
not
going
at
to
all.
happen. I know Ohio State caused chaos early in the 4-team model, but we're not going to see that across 16 quarters against teams objectively better than you. And I just don't think it's going to
Yeah.
happen. But, it'll be entertaining. I'm sure once the games start going, we'll complain less because it'll be more playoff football. But yeah,
Yeah.
12 is a hard sell for me.
Yeah. And we know one team that as long as they take care of business and finish out the season should be in the playoffs, barring anything stupid like college football playoff can be. Clemson goes
Right.
down to Tallahassee in a night game, hostile environment against a very just good Florida State team this year. There's no way to put it. Like they have a tremendous running game. They were just ripping off six yards of carry against a very great defensive front seven that held a NC State team to 1 yard average for a whole game. Um, ended up it's 34-14 late in the third quarter. Ended up being 34-28, which was a game, wasn't a game. It just didn't keep the foot on the pedal, I guess, which was kind of disappointing to see.
Right. With 10 minutes left, we were up 34-14. They scored twice, including the last TD drive. They went 94 yards in 95 seconds. I mean, I think Brent
And
Venables would
we
have died on the field if that had happened. He was still there. I mean,
yeah,
that's just
and
embarrassing.
there's no way around it. Our secondary sucks. Like it's terrible.
It's bad. Yeah.
And I know a bunch of it is like they look good on plays is because we're getting so much pressure that the quarterback just kind of has to throw the ball up. But it you
When
think
we
at
don't
some
get
point
there,
they
it's
would
a problem. Yeah.
slowly, yeah, they need to slowly start figuring out. I mean, if a team was able to complete, if there's a slightly better FSU team in general, they're able to run the ball for 6 yards of carry and throw over the top on us. That game gets dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, I just can't believe as many of the coaches that have been there long enough to know why you don't screw around with Florida State and Tallahassee. Dabo, the first among them, to give Florida State an onside kick opportunity to take the lead is embarrassing. And
Yeah,
if you want to know why we're fifth again in the AP poll, that's exactly why. Because we saw Michigan go out and murder a, I guess, top 10 Penn State team. And then we saw Tennessee go in and get a win against a top 3 team at home. And so I think both were
yeah,
justified in jumping us. Although I will say we beat number 10 NC State and stayed behind Michigan because the AP poll just continues to amaze. But
yeah.
I honestly don't care about the AP poll. I only complain
No,
about it because it's all we have at the moment. When
it's something to
November
talk about.
5th, November 8th rolls around, we get that first playoff poll, I will cease to even check this. It does not matter. It means nothing. It decides nothing. So, but for the next 3-4 weeks, it is the only data points we have to go off of because the coaches poll is a bunch of interns. So,
Yeah, and we trust writers too, so they know a lot about football.
they seem to. And then you see, I'm glad that we do get the release of every vote because some of these are, I think one still had Tennessee at 6 behind Alabama. I mean, just the stupidest things in the world week in, week out. But thankfully, collectively, they at least attempt to get it right, and they're close enough, just given it's still the middle of October. It's all going to sort itself out. It always does. But
Yeah.
we will
But I
complain
mean,
while we
this is
still
kind
can.
of looking like the season where it might not sort of all stuff out, but you never know.
Right. I would not put our fate in the hands of the committee at 12-1. I would
Nope,
run the table.
not at all. See, the
I
ACC, Big 12, Pac-12, which we'll get into in a second, they really rarely can afford a loss. I mean,
right. I mean, Michigan, Ohio State, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia. That's 5 from 2 conferences that are alive,
yeah,
and could stay that way until very late November and even early December. So I mean, and we still haven't seen like some of these Big Ten road stunners that I don't think happened this year, but we've seen in the past teams trip up, especially out west. Oregon will go in somewhere like Corvallis and lose, and the job gets done for the committee before they actually have to sit down and leave out an 11-1 team or something like that. So
yeah,
we forget how chaotic the later weeks are. So I think that for now it's like, wow, we have like 10 teams that could really genuinely make the playoff. I think we're gonna start to see them get picked off by some hungry conference opponents, especially on the road. So I mean, it's
yeah. And there's one coming to Clemson this weekend,
oh yes,
and
there is.
Clemson can't really afford to give up 6.5 yards a carry to Sean Tucker.
No, they cannot, because we're giving up 6 to. I mean, like I said it before, Jordan Travis is the second best quarterback we'll play. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Hartman and what he did to us,
Yeah,
but he's better than Leary. I don't care what's going on with his shoulders. I mean, Travis is better than Leary from the start of the season. Unfortunately, Leary out for the year, but Jordan Travis is really, really, really
oh
good.
yeah,
And if they can get a defense and a couple more playmakers around him, look out in 2 years, is all I'm going to say. Because they're going
yeah.
to be, I
And
won't say back, but
Norvell was left with just about nothing from Taggart.
Willie Taggart, yeah, left him
Yeah, and
absolutely
honestly, the
nothing.
same thing for Taggart with Jimbo. Like it's kind of been like that
Oh,
kind of
no. Jimbo pulled the Spurrier. He looked around the
yeah.
ship, saw a bunch of holes, and left. I mean, it was, yeah.
That's
So,
kind of been the MO for the Florida State coaches, and
right.
Norvell's the only one that's been able to put things together, put pieces together, get transfer portals,
Right.
and
And it still took
they're a
time.
good
So, I
team.
mean,
Yeah,
credit to Florida State for sticking it out. And I realized, with Taggart, patience led to nothing. But I think with Norvell, we're starting to see results. I mean, the spread was weird for this game. I think we're at least 10, 14 points better than them. That's what the score was before we kind of took our foot off the gas and dared them to make a game out of it, which if you dare Jordan Travis to do that, it will happen 9 times out of 10. So,
hey, I
uh,
knew we were definitely 3.5 points better.
yeah, that was stupid. I don't, I mean, I,
Had me worried there. I almost got a little dyslexic thinking it said 31-28, and I was about to throw a fit.
yeah, I realized that very tall buildings get built off easy bets, but yeah, no, that was, yeah, I don't know why or who. I'm assuming they're back in the job portal, whoever decided that line, because I don't know how
Yeah,
you could get there. But yeah, I mean, it's games you have to have your Clemson again, the ACC with I think 5 ranked teams now, 4. I know 3 are ranked in the Atlantic, but people continue to say that the ACC is garbage, and then they stick up for teams like Kentucky and Ole Miss who've accomplished nothing, and then when given the opportunity, they show it. So it's just it doesn't mean more. So the wins are
yeah,
very important. And like you mentioned, the run defense is going to have to improve. Schrader, thank God, is no Jordan Travis, but Sean Tucker is very, very good. And when given the opportunity, he will gash us as much as he possibly can. So
yeah.
we're going to
Definitely
figure
something to
some
look
things
forward
out on
to.
tape for sure.
As we are there, both me and Grayson will be on site. My first game of the year. Grayson, that was what your second. So
Yeah.
we'll do a little meetup. Figure something out. Last time we did something, we were out in Atlanta. RIP. Um, but yeah, that we'll give a little recap of our experience there. Next game that we got on here, Southern Cal finally gets tripped up. Their defense finally blows it for them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I told y'all last week, I sat here and said, I don't care how many losses Utah have. There's one in
Oh,
the Pac 12, and they are very much alive out there for that conference.
It's
And
tough to
Cam
go play
Rising,
out there.
yeah, Cam Rising is not one to go to and give up 43. And I love the play call late by Whittingham to actually go for it, even at home, go for the win. I don't think it was designed to end up with Rising in the end zone on his feet, but that's how it happened. So, and he played a hell of a game. I think Southern Cal, obviously, the offense wasn't the problem. They did lose Jordan Addison, I think, in the third quarter to an injury, but I mean, the offense was not the issue. Even
Yeah.
post that departure, it was the defense, and that's kind of been the supposed Achilles heel. We just haven't seen it exposed quite yet. Fresno State was working on it, and then Jake Hainer, unfortunately, left with an injury. That was the end of that upset bid. Stanford's atrocious unless you're playing Notre Dame. Who's the other one? Oregon State. That was a defensive battle of all things. So I mean,
Yeah.
this was I mean, maybe the best QB they'll play. I know they've got DTR coming up, but I mean, Cam Rising is incredible, and that Utah team has a lot of belief in themselves. They had the tribute helmets on, so I'm not surprised they were fired up for that one. Home crowd was excellent. And yeah, it's one of those classic Pac-12 games where this is why they cannibalize themselves every single year. And we rarely see them in the playoff because the teams at the top are, I won't say even, but they're just unable to avoid spots like
Yeah.
this. And I
They're not
realize Southern
quite
Cal,
good enough.
right? Southern Cal at 12-1 is in the playoff. I don't care how many 11-1 teams there are. I don't care what conference they're from. A 12-1 Power Five champ is
Yeah.
in. I don't care if TCU's 12-1. They're in.
You by the book they should be in, but we know that
Right.
the playoff they're going to go for the ratings. So Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee will all be in the playoffs, and one in Ohio State. So we'll be on the outside looking in.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, especially right. If this was like Oregon State 12-1, maybe. This is Southern Cal. They're back. They've got the coach, the
Yeah.
QB, best receiver, talent-wise, maybe in the country. Ohio
Yeah.
State probably has an objection there, but
And him
they
going
will
out
put
during that
them in.
game did not help.
No, it didn't. But I promise you, I don't care if Alabama's 11-1. I don't care if Tennessee's 11-1. 12-1 Southern Cal is in the playoff. It might be
Yeah.
4. It doesn't matter. They are putting them in the playoff.
They're going to be tested to see if they actually do take into consideration conference championships. So, I mean,
Right.
and if they're 12-1, they're probably going to have to beat. They're going to have to beat UCLA. They're
Mhm.
going to have to beat either Utah or Oregon. They're
Again,
going to have
right.
to beat teams to make it to playoffs, and
Right.
like probably more than likely top 15 teams, top 25 teams. So,
Right. And the issue now, as I mentioned last week with the schedule, it's a cakewalk. I think they're off this week. They play like Arizona, Cal, just other,
Arizona, Cal, Colorado.
yeah, teams that they should beat by 40 week in, week out. And I think that while they may not move up, if they can just avoid moving down, we'll see these teams like Ole Miss and some other ones up there that have no place being there, just haven't lost yet. And we'll see the same effect for Southern Cal as they slowly rise, as teams do fall and these crazy upsets in November happen. But yeah, if they, right, like you said, they'll have to beat UCLA, who I think at the worst will be ranked still. They have a big game with Oregon this weekend. Game days out in Eugene, as they should be. But yeah, they're going to have to beat, I mean, whoever they play in the Pac-12 Championship is going to be top 15, I think. So that's 2 more ranked wins. This was a huge chance for them to really make the claim that they can go anywhere and beat anybody out west, and they couldn't do it. So that resume is in need of some help, but they will get it late in the season, to say the least.
Yep. Basically, the way that the college football landscape is shaping right now is that there are probably about 6 teams that could make the playoffs and only 4 spots. So a lot of season left to be played. There's still 5 games left, conference championships. So definitely a lot of room for wiggling from some teams. So we'll see which teams stay hot or not. So you got anything else for college football?
Not a whole lot. Just stressing that, we sit here in the middle of October. Oh, they need a 25-team playoff. No, we don't.
Yeah.
We are going to know pretty quick. Teams like USC will go to places like Utah, and they will lose. And it will stun all of us like it always does. But it's coming. And, like you mentioned, the 6 to maybe 8, stretch it to 10 teams alive, quote unquote, will shrink week in, week out. And then we'll land on the 4 that should be there. So,
Yeah. I think we talked about this one time with Jacob when he was on here. We're talking about rankings and stuff. whenever the 12-team playoff comes out, we just need 12 teams ranked. Keep it simple. No need to have
Oh
all these
yeah,
other
maybe
useless.
20. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the ones that are in and out of the chance to hop into the playoffs. So, but that's just us thinking things that would be easier, and we know that they will not be taken into consideration at all.
Unless it makes money, in which case it will happen. So
Yeah. So yeah, I think that probably does about does it for college football. Um, we got another NFL Sunday, and the underdogs had a day.
yeah, I mean, I'll read the list right now. In the early window alone, the Falcons, the Patriots, the Jets, the Giants, who are now 5-1, and the Pittsburgh Steelers all picked up wins in the early window. The Falcons beating an injury just destroyed Niners team. The Patriots, led by Bailey Zappi, getting the
Shout
win.
out to the boy for the namesake.
They who'd they beat?
They beat
The
the
Browns,
Patriots. Browns, yeah.
which I'll get to. Jets beat the
You're
Packers by two
Browns.
scores. I mean, Zach Wilson, I'm telling you what, that's a 4-2 Jets team. So them and the Giants, who beat the Ravens after two late TDs to steal that one from Baltimore, who, like I've been telling you guys, is not good, and they did it again. That's
They
three
did.
games now they have just absolutely collapsed in. And then
Third
the
time's the
Steelers,
charm. I'm over them.
beat the Buccaneers because why not? Kenny Pickett, who yielded to Mitch Trubisky at some point in that game. I didn't have eyes on it. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what prompted that, but it
I
was
think he got banged up.
okay. So it was a combined effort at QB in any event, and they beat Tampa Bay, who scored late, but just like in Green Bay, could not get the 2-point conversion to force OT potentially. So, but yeah, I've mentioned. I'll start with where I was right, and that is the Ravens. Their point differential in the fourth quarter is -42. That is
Not
embarrassing.
how you win a game.
No. And against the
How
Dolphins and the
much?
Bills is
I was
one
about to say,
thing,
how much was
but
it? How much of it was the Bills and Dolphins?
a lot because they were. I've actually got it. Hold on. I saved this because I knew. I write the script, but I
Yeah.
knew this was going to come up, and I've got it. Here we go. All right. So 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter against the Dolphins at home. They were up 35-14. They lose that game. They were up late in the first half, 20-3 against Buffalo. Lose that game. Don't score in the second half. And then Sunday, they're up 20-10 with 6 minutes left, give up 14 in the last 6 minutes, do not score, and lose 24-20 to Saquon and the Giants. So, I mean, this is deja vu times three, six
Deja
games
vu
into
all
the
over
season.
again.
I mean, it's just, I don't know what they're doing to fix it, but they're treating symptoms, not the root of it, because it happens over and over and over again. And like I said, Miami and Buffalo, two of the top teams in the AFC. The Giants are a lot of things. They're not a contender in the North. Excuse me, in the East or at any point in the NFC. So, I mean, it's a great story. Brian Daboll deserves a lot of credit for what he's done. Saquon is resurgent, which is amazing to see. But that Giants team, Daniel Jones,
Yeah.
that is the limit on that team. I don't care if Saquon rushes for
Yeah.
2,000 yards. The buck stops at Daniel Jones. And the
Daniel Jones is
receivers,
going to lose them some more games.
I mean, Kadarius Toney is one of the more electric players in the league, and they just don't use him. I don't know if that's an Acre situation off the field, but I mean,
Yeah.
something's amiss there. And they've had some receivers hurt as well. They pay, who was it, Galladay, $1 billion to do nothing. I mean, it's
Yeah, I dropped him.
this team does have flaws, but defense with young talent like our guy Dexter Lawrence is helping as well. I mean, that's a Ravens offense that's pretty electric, and they got held to 20 points. So, I mean, but yeah, this Ravens team, I've been trying to tell y'all, is just not. Something is wrong. And the Bengals literally handed them that primetime game too. So this could be a 2-4 team. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just they are
There's
much better than their record. So
just the way, like, with how college is too. Like, I mean, you got a couple teams that are dominant, but then it's just all like mixed match of who's going to win this week, who's going to win that week, who's going to lose this week, who's
it's
going
like
to
the
go on a
middle of
three-game
the
win streak.
SEC
Yeah.
with Ole Miss, Kentucky, Mississippi State. I think Tennessee has graduated that class at this point. But they all A&M, they all play each other. They all win one or two out of the 4 games, and it's just a mess. And that's what we see in the NFL as well. I mean, These teams are 3-3. The Buccaneers, the Niners, and the Packers. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a little bit early for alarm bells, but they're starting to ring faintly. I mean, out of those three, who are you most surprised by even through 6 weeks?
that's 2-3,
They're 3-3.
3-3. And who was it again? Packers.
Packers, Niners, and Buccaneers, all 3-3.
Oh God.
I mean, that's
But I can see all of them. And I'm not
Packers. I would
surprised.
be least surprised by, honestly.
Yeah,
But I mean, the
I
Niners,
would have to
when
say the
healthy,
Niners probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
when healthy. I think they're down 6 starters entering Sunday and lost more. They're just whatever injury bug they've had recently. Them, Baltimore, and the Chargers just
They always
cannot
have an
keep guys
injury
healthy.
bug. That's the thing.
Right.
They're always hurt.
Yeah, and they lost to Atlanta by I think 14, which one of the more surprising final scores I saw. And I mean, the Buccaneers, you kind of sensed this. The magic was a little bit over with Brady off the field and things like that. But I mean, losing to a rookie QB at least most of the game, that's not like Brady at all. I mean, and again, 3-3. There's a lot worse place to be. I mean, you can certainly go 3-3 and win.
Yeah.
I don't know, 4-6, 5-6, then we forget about it. But yeah, some concerning. I mean, that's on paper the three best teams in the NFC a month ago, or I guess it's been
Last
6
year.
weeks now.
Yeah.
I think people thought Philly is a contender in the NFC East, but certainly not sitting at undefeated and being the last undefeated team. So I mean, it's and they kind of pulled a Clemson a bit. And we'll get to that, but yeah, I mean, it's when you see
Clemsoning, baby.
when you see the Giants at 5-1, the Jets at 4-2, you feel really bad about 3-3 all of a sudden. But
Yeah.
Teams bubble up every year and they'll fade. I don't think the Giants are serious contenders. They do have
Give them a year or
two.
two, get a better quarterback. I think
Right.
the Jets will be probably good. Brees Hall's a stud. Zach Wilson.
They nailed that pick.
They got weapons on wide receivers. Their defense is solid. So I see the Jets. Jets are going to sustain more than at the Giants, I believe.
Right. And I think the Giants, unfortunately, the way the NFL schedule is, they do this every year, and I hate it. But I think they see Philly twice in the last 5 or 6 weeks. I don't get why they do that.
They do a couple where you play the same team like the first couple weeks, or like you'll play the same team the last couple weeks like that. I feel like that always happens to us with like the Falcons one year and the Saints the other, and it flip flops.
Right. And I know that making that schedule is the most thankless job and far too complicated for me to comprehend. But I mean, there's got to be some way. I mean, you can't predict that the Giants and Eagles are 11-1 combined through 6 weeks. But I mean, to have them staggered like that, I mean, that's the biggest true test for the Giants because you're guaranteed 8 quarters with the Eagles. But yeah, I think it's a great story for now. Like you said, I don't see it lasting. But for now, they're 5-1 and they should definitely be getting the buzz that they are. And yeah, I mentioned off the top the Cleveland Browns. I mean, what more could I possibly do to put my faith in a team only to have them go out and look like garbage? I mean, I think
go ahead and pick your team for this week, and they will lose. So let's bet on that.
I think every single person involved in the decision to start Brissett should be fired.
Who else
Because
would they start?
I don't care. Throw Josh Dobbs in there, the way Tennessee's running lately.
They had him.
I mean, I don't care if they get Doug Hodges off the street. I mean, Brissett is horrible.
I mean, the AFC North is up in arms now. I mean, pick a team that will lose. So, like, literally, like, good luck picking that division.
I mean, it's like picking the ACC Coastal at this point. I mean, like I said, I sat here last week and told you I read that schedule with Deshaun. The Browns can tread water because Brissett at least plays good for 3.5 quarters. He had 2 picks in the first half. They got beat by the Patriots. What was it? 38-15.
Yeah.
By a rookie third-string quarterback at home. That's pathetic. I don't understand how you have Nick Chubb, how you have Kareem Hunt, how you have Clowney, Garrett, Ward, guys I'm not even remembering on the other side of the defense. I know some of them are banged up, but I mean, to have Amari Cooper stand out there with his hands on his hips half the time, because if Brissett does throw in his direction, it's not to the right jersey. I think Cooper got in the end zone Sunday, but I mean, he had 4 catches, 44 yards, and touchdown. It's probably his best game as a Brown because
Yeah.
Brissett, 21 of 45, the TD to Cooper, 2 picks. I think those are both in the first half early, like I mentioned, and they just got embarrassed. I mean, I don't understand. They're 2-4 now. And, the Ravens lost as well, which helps. The Bengals picked up a win, though. They're starting to heat up again. But, I mean, it was 10-6 New England at halftime. And that was very much a game. And they just got destroyed in the second half. I just don't get it. I just think because of all the names elsewhere, it's got to be the quarterback. I mean, the 3 losses prior to Sunday all featured him throwing a pick in the last 3 minutes. And it was largely why I lost the game. They should be the Chargers. I don't know how in the world the Chargers escaped that game. But it was because of Brissett. And he's just, I don't get it. He was he was adequate in Indy when Luck retired, which is why he still has a job in the NFL now based on that season. I know he's bounced around a bit, but whatever's going on in Cleveland's not working. He looks atrocious. The team is now 2-4. And again, with how weird that division's been, that's not the worst thing in the world, but you got to give Deshaun a chance. I mean, they're paying him, $45 million this year? If they're like 3-8, it's not going to matter what he does. So I don't know. I'm holding out hope that I don't know if he's like Kyler didn't watch film, because it's the definition of insanity. It's the same thing over and over again every single week. And so I still think they win the division ultimately. I think Cincinnati's starting to turn it on, but with Baltimore allergic to late leads, I think they still have a fighting chance. But I mean, Sunday was a big chance. I mean, they just lost to Atlanta too. They had back-to-back weeks to really, make a statement, say, all right, we're not great right now, but we're good enough to make it worth Deshaun playing out of his mind, hopefully, for that last 6-7 games, and then having a shot at the division. But instead of 4-2, they're 2-4. So it is not looking great in Cleveland.
Yeah, the AFC North is, like we mentioned, up for grabs. If I had to pick a team right now, I would go with the Bengals. They went down to New Orleans, got a dub. Shout out to T, first win in the Superdome for him. That Saints ain't that good, but
no. But I mean, I think it was
out. They were down to Taysom Hill, I think.
Oh, were they really?
Well, because I think Andy Dalton hurt his back or something too, Andy Dalton got hurt. Jameis is already hurt. So they're down to, I'm pretty sure Taysom Hill or pretty sure Ian Book is still there.
I think you're right. Yeah, that Saints team, great defense, offense. They've got Kamara, Michael Thomas, Olave. I think Thomas has been hurt, unfortunately. Yeah, they've got. It's just like Cleveland. They have the names. Yeah. It's just, first of all, quarterback, and second of all, they just can't put 4 quarters together. So, and I mean, with how Tampa's looking, that division's not signed, sealed, delivered either. So, I think Atlanta, what are they? 3-3, 4-2, somewhere in there. Are they winning that division right now? Because they could be.
Give me like 2 seconds. I can pull it up. They are currently sitting tied with Tampa, both at 3-3.
Okay, so I mean, yeah.
One's 2-0 in the division, one's 0-2. So.
And that's gonna that's
a tiebreaker, I'm pretty sure.
Right. So I mean, again, they're not winning the division anyway, but just the fact that they sit a tiebreaker away at 500 through 6 weeks is not where anybody had that division pegged, to say the least. Unfortunately, for some teams, the QB is the least of the issues, and that is the case in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, 20 of 22 for 165 yards and a TD in a loss that featured Alec Pierce, the rookie receiver for Indy, burning the defense late for a touchdown that sealed the loss for Jacksonville. I think that's 3 or 4 in a row for them now. 3 in a row. They sit at 2-4 at the moment. Trevor was the first QB ever with 20 or more pass attempts, a completion percentage north of 90%. With 3 total TDs, he added 2 on the ground, no turnovers, and a loss in the 103-year history of the NFL. So, yikes.
If we're gonna nitpick, we might need to get the yards up a little bit. 165 in the NFL. Come on now, Trev. That's 8 yards a pass. You gotta have a little bit more down the field, but
Yeah, he was
I
by no
wanted
means
Travis.
MVP candidate, but
Yeah,
I just yeah, you
I was, fe- I was feeling good about Travis going into this game, getting his first touchdown. He looked good. I mean, he had I think he had like 80 yards rushing total.
yeah,
He
his
was up
role
with
is growing with that team every single week, and it's
yeah.
at the expense of James Robinson, but
They're
that is the
starting to figure out
reality
how
of
to use him.
right. That's just the reality of draft capital in the NFL. Unfortunately, for better or for worse, where you're
Yeah,
drafted and what you're paid indicates a lot about your role. So
10 for 86 with 48 yard long run. So
right,
he's shown that it was a good draft pick. He just gotta get
right.
him in the end zone, Trevor. I'll
He
keep
just
begging.
missed a year is the issue. So
Yeah, but yeah, like you mentioned, they got to get some help with their defense, which is weird to say after what was it 5 years ago they had Saxonville and they were phantom offsides penalty away from going to the Super Bowl.
or the fumble six blown dead for no reason for Miles Jack. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, this team is not as mired in mediocrity as you might expect. I know lately they have been back-to-back number one overall picks. Ain't great. That's almost impressive. It's so hard to do, but if they got both picks right, I'll say that. Trayvon Walker's been playing well. He's on defense, doesn't get as much of the hype, even as much as an Aiden Hutchinson or some other guys defensively. Sauce Gardner, some of the young studs in the league on defense.
No, that's
But
a stud. That is a
yeah,
lockdown.
but I mean, yeah, I think that you could do a lot worse than Trevor Lawrence and Trayvon Walker with those two number one overall picks, and give him more time with Peterson at the helm and not some jackass who's worried more about a 20-year-old at a bar than his team. Then they'll be fine. So
Yeah. But that's going to take some years. It's Jacksonville. So,
oh, absolutely, yeah.
and speaking of taking years off my life, um, I mean, I wasn't expecting anything out of this game. I was hoping we'd at least cover. The Panthers went down and lost by 14 to the Rams, which, okay, who cares? Like, this point of the season, it's just look like you have some life, get some guys some good reps, potential trade pieces. There's been a lot of rumors about them listening to trade offers for McCaffrey, which is I think been the past couple of years too, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's nothing new.
But yeah, went down. Hopefully, score a touchdown towards the end, but our theoretically fourth string practice squad quarterback Jacob Eason threw an interception, which who cares? Except for my bank account with the gambling. But I mean, I wasn't really too worried. It was more of an emotional bet. But we did get rid of another Temple guy. Robbie Anderson and our wide receivers coach got into it during the middle of the game. I don't know why Robbie Anderson was getting into it with the coach. I mean, I think he's got a couple touchdowns on the season. Like, no Panthers wide receiver is doing great. Look at what DJ Moore is doing, and Robbie Anderson, Sky Moore. Like, the Panthers wide receiver core is doing nothing because the quarterbacks can't throw to them. It's not the play calling. It's like I said, it's just the fact that our quarterbacks are brain dead. Baker is Baker Mayfield, probably what a lot of people expected this season. So yeah, Wilkes sent Robbie Anderson pretty much off the field. A little more PG version of Antonio Brown getting sent off, but and it came out the next day that they ended up trading Robbie to the Cardinals, who had lost Rondell Moore. I think we got a couple draft picks out of it, but I, that's about all I got on that game. Defense is good. They had a pick six, couple turnovers, so defense is good. Offense is bleh. Let's just get through this season.
I think the biggest thing the Panthers this year, as far as goals is just identifying who needs to go now in Anderson. That is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in a world without Antonio Brown losing his mind. That's a much bigger story, but unfortunately, there's precedent for that for some reason. If he was
Oh, there
trying
was
to
a
accomplish a trade, then congrats. But I mean, what an idiot!
there was a there's a screenshot of him with a clenched fist um, when he was nose to nose with our wide receivers coach. Our wide receiver coach wasn't backing down either. Those boys were about to scrap.
That's
But
how you end your Panthers career, NFL career, football career, all in one literal swing. So
yeah,
I,
he's just
I
a
guess I'll give him credit
island
for not doing
boy.
that. Um, yeah, the hair is ridiculous. The behavior is worse.
And
Good for Carolina. I don't care if you traded him for literally a 7th round pick. That's addition by subtraction, just like Rule.
Matt Rule literally went out and grabbed him. Like he has shown flashes where he is could be a good potential trade piece,
Right.
but he has done nothing. He hasn't strung anything together for a consistent half season, full season. And then when you about fight a coach, you lose a ton of trade value. You're not going to go to it. No team is going to want you.
And whatever you add on the field, whatever you subtract culture wise in the locker room means a lot more as far as if you'll be asked to remain with the team. And I mean, good luck to Arizona. Hopefully DeAndre Hopkins can talk some sense into him. I mean, good luck. I don't understand it. I can't believe they found a trade for him that quickly, honestly. But yeah, it's like I said, they
That
just got
might
to
have been
evaluate.
during the game kind of trade.
I'm sure the GM was on the phone.
It was to the NFL GM group chat saying, "Who wants this idiot?"
Yeah, give me a day 3 pick and I will mail you his locker room because that is just stupid. There's no other way to put it.
And it really overshadowed the game too. So
Right. And I mean, injuries happen at QB like you mentioned. That's unfortunate. 10 points in the NFL is not going to win you much, but I mean, defense did fine. 24 points across the country against what we perceive to be a top team in the NFC prior to some slip ups early. That's fine. I mean, you'll take that. This year is not about winning. It's more about identifying who you want to keep around long term, players and coaches for the next head coach, and then try and turn this thing around while CMC is still in his prime. So
I might end my fandom. I might end my fandom if they get rid of him, but I can see it coming. So
yeah, I don't think it happens pre-deadline. I think that's. I mean, again, I think they're really going to trade him and really hit the reset. It would have happened already.
and it would have to be a blockbuster trade. It would have to be like a team with like 2 or 3 first round picks, second round picks, a couple players. Like it's going to be something crazy. So
It
it's
would
going
have
to take a
been,
lot to figure it out.
yeah, it, which is a good sign because unlike Robbie Anderson, you flip him a round 2 cares pick and he's gone. McCaffrey is worth a lot more, means a lot more, so it's gonna be more complicated. But yeah, I would be stunned if I mean Brian Burns, sure, a couple other guys mentioned. That's one thing. DJ Moore, I'd be surprised by, but yeah, I think CMC is that final domino that they're yet to want to tip over, at least at this point.
Yeah. So that is your weekly Panthers rant.
Yeah, that's the cheaper than therapy segment. But one of the better games of the day, unfortunately, not as many points as some of us expected or hoped for. Bills Chiefs and Patrick Kermit Mahomes was throwing darts late. The problem is they were to the Bills, and he threw a pick when the inevitable less than 2 minute drill arose with the Chiefs down 4 after a late Dawson Knox TD. And this time at Arrowhead, he could not get it done. And the Bills beat the Chiefs in the regular season for the second straight year. And again, just like last year, we are sure to see these two match up again in the playoffs. So this is far from over.
Yeah. It just goes to show you that I mean, we were going to talks before the game. We're like, the winner of this game is going to probably be in the driver's seat for the AFC. And I mean, the Bills are currently sitting in that spot, but like you mentioned, it's very much going to probably end up being these two teams playing the AFC Championship game. Hopefully this year it's at the Bills, but I mean, both teams are good. I mean, both quarterbacks played pretty well. One made one more mistake than the other. Um, yeah, I mean, I was hoping for more points. I may or may not have had the over, so that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen some weird games from these teams. That Miami game was odd for the Bills. Chiefs lost to the Colts outright. I mean, but I
You're gonna
mean,
get those games in the NFL too. One team's gonna get
right.
hot for a weekend.
Right. And when the matchups present themselves like this, both of these QBs were up for it. They played well. Again, 24-20, you might think that's the halftime score with how these two teams have played in the past, but unfortunately for you and the rest of the over bettors out there, that was the final. So, but, entertaining game, lived up to the hype. A Sunday that needed it. I mean, a lot of upsets early, but, no real thrillers. I mean, Tampa Steelers got good very late. Falcons won by 2 TDs. Patriots beat the Browns by a million. Jets won by a bunch. I guess Giants Ravens was a one-sided thriller late. So I mean, the week needed it. The week got it. Bills Chiefs delivered again, and yeah, like you said, two best teams in the AFC. I said coming in, the Chiefs were the number one team, and the Bills had to go in and take it, and they did. So I think the Bills now return to the top spot in the AFC.
Yeah, I agree. I agree as well. Josh Allen is making his case for league MVP. So, I mean, one other note that I have about this game is that the fact that Jordan Poirier
Oh yeah, that was ridiculous.
drove 15 hours there and back just to play in the game because of he wasn't going to be able to fly because of some issue with his ribs, I think.
Yes, rib injury.
Yeah, that's idiotic to say the least. I don't know how 15 hours in a car would be good on sitting on ribs, but
I heard it was a van apparently, so maybe he stretched out, but
and there's no way, there's no shot he actually drove.
No. It was a driving service. But that's dedication. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, if I was Poyer, I'd help him out too, just because of what that took to get him to the game and back apparently. So, that is dedication. Only football could bring out of somebody, and I think I don't remember any notable plays from him, but I'm sure he had a couple as impactful as he is on that defense, and how sorely he was missed when he wasn't there. So
a lot harder to pick out notable plays for defense compared to an offense. But the fact that his name wasn't called all that much is probably a good thing.
Exactly. So I mean, and it worked. I mean, they got the win. I'm sure he contributed to it a good bit. Like I mentioned, one of the bigger impact guys on that defense. And so, yeah. And then Sunday night, I told everyone for as long as I could that the Cowboys had no chance in this game, and they didn't until Philly decided to let them have a chance for some reason. We mentioned Clemson earlier, and they gave it a shot. They were up 20-0 after a late first half field goal. A kick return by Turpin set up a field goal from Brett Maher to end the half, 20-3 Philly. And then Dallas scored the next 14, and it was 20-17 a couple seconds into the fourth quarter. And I personally, at no point thought that Dallas was going to win the game outright, but it was more of just how in the world do you let this team come back and do this? So some real weakness from Philly. I think last week, a close game, but it certainly didn't end up at a close game in this fashion. It was more just back and forth as opposed to just letting off the gas against a divisional opponent. Just never, ever going to work.
It's very much that they got comfortable and they're just like, all right, yep, this game's over. Let's just pack it on to the next one.
Right. The crowd was up. They were loud. It's big time to be a Philly sports fan at the moment. But, Rush ended up 18-38 with 3 picks. The third sealed the game inside 2 minutes. I mean, Cooper Rush has been great. If you asked any Cowboys fan, would you take 4-1 with Cooper Rush? They all say yes immediately. There's no other need for context or who they lose to. They don't care. Dak apparently on track to play.
I was about to say,
they've got Detroit, Chicago, then a bye. What'd you say?
You think that pretty much with this loss that it's looking like he's probably it's going to be easier to get him back in as a starter?
Oh yeah, I mean at Philly and against the Lions are two very different degrees of difficulty. I realize the Lions are upstart some weeks and then they get destroyed in others. They're just kind of uneven still. But yeah, there is no reason to bring Dak back for this game. They weren't going to win the game. So I see no issue with bringing out Cooper Rush one last time. I think Dak could have played. I think he may have even indicated that himself. But there's no need to. They will see this team again at home. And hopefully Dak Zeke, 13 carries, 81 yards, and a touchdown. That's a lot closer to what he was at his peak than what he has been recently. So vintage Zeke there, Sanders on the other side, almost identical stat line. So A.J. Brown impactful. He only had 5 catches, but 67 yards and a TD, disruptive as a receiver. Devonta Smith caught the last TD that put them up by 9. And so Eagles not by a million, like I said, but obviously in control from the start. Scoreless first quarter was odd to see, as explosive as Philly is on offense. I know Dallas has a great defense, but that surprised me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fell
Yeah,
asleep. I was tired from golfing, so I didn't really get to watch much of that game.
it was
I
not the
was in
most
bed tired.
fast-paced game. I will
Yeah,
say that.
yeah. I had it on, and then I woke up, and it was like third quarter. I'm like, yeah, we're turning this off. So
Yeah, and not to be outdone slow pace wise, last night my Chargers again
go
begged a
ahead,
team to
go
beat
off,
them,
Kim.
and the second straight week.
Hey, before you get into it, just know this:
What?
you won the game, so keep that in mind. You are
Yeah,
a
I
winner.
know, but I forever the optimist. I'm still going to complain.
Yeah,
That O line was not great. The rookie Zion Johnson had 3 holding calls against him. If you're an O lineman, you want to be on TV. That's not the way to do it. Sawyer at left tackle was solid. I mean, Denver up front's good. They got Justin Simmons back for this game.
Nick,
They got a tight
Bradley
end
Chubb.
back who scored to open the game. Denver's up 10-0 early, and I thought, here we go again. Anthony Lynn might as well be coaching this team, but thankfully, Herbert was able to will the team back, still without Keenan Allen on offense. Mike had one of the better catches of the year. Unfortunately, his second toe was a millimeter out of bounds.
That seems to be
He
his
was
MO. He always go up. He'll go up for one insane catch.
right.
He's a
He
ball
was
hawk. We saw that in college too. So
oh, absolutely, and he was neutralized a bit by the Bama corner whose name escapes
Surtain.
me. Yes, Patrick Surtain did a good job covering him. Chargers really not doing a whole lot down the field. They really couldn't keep Herbert protected long enough to do it, and when he did, the coverage was pretty good. So we were forced into a lot of short stuff, and thankfully it was just enough. Defense was fine. J.C. Jackson struggled a lot. It just hasn't quite clicked yet. He's been hampered with an ankle as well, so maybe not 100% healthy there. But yeah, like you said, we won. We're a lap through the division, 1-2 out of 3. I'll take that every time. Sitting at 4-2. I mean, that's a very shaky 4-2, but it could be worse. It could be much, much worse. So yeah, 4-2. Get Seattle next week. That should not be a Chargers play down situation, but you know, Gino's got a lot of magical things going on in Seattle, so who knows? But I'm not expecting a heart attack next week. So
yeah, and Panthers got Tampa Bay, so that's gonna be fun.
I mean, this might be the best time to play Tampa Bay. As bad as their
No,
O-line looked.
no. When you're the Panthers, there's no good time to play anybody.
Right, but I mean, you got to play them twice. You might as well play them when they're in turmoil and Brady's screaming at his O-line to save his marriage and all that stuff. So, it never a good time, but it's not a horrible time. I'll say that.
Yeah. I. You got anything else on NFL?
No, I think that's the week in the NFL. Witching hour delivered like always. All those upsets we mentioned, all that good stuff. We do a baseball or are we skipping it?
No. I got one more thing on college football. It just dawned on me.
Go ahead.
I had this take a couple episodes ago. You remember when I said Kansas might not make a bowl game?
I do, and I hate how very plausible that is now.
I'm looking at their schedule right now.
It's
At
not
Baylor.
easy. Yeah.
They're at Baylor. Got Oklahoma State coming to them. At Texas Tech. Texas at home. At K-State.
They're going to need at least one of Texas Tech and Kansas State.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It dawned on me during the middle of NFL for some reason, talking about, I don't know why. And I was like, oh, shit, I had that take out there. I would like to be right about one.
I think, unfortunately, the last time they started 5-0, which was in, I forget the year. Some year a while ago, they started 5-0. They did lose the next 7.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't want that at all. I want Kansas in the bowl
No.
game.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, they went, what was it, in 2007, that crazy season, they were like, what, 12-1, something like that?
Yeah,
I mean,
they were up to they were up number 2 in the rankings or something stupid like that. Number 1. It would be great, but I guess I never really completely bought into the hype for Kansas. I know it's like hot team, Kansas, who was projected to only win 3 games this year. They're
Right.
5-0. They already smashed their win total. I think people got out of their head, out ahead of themselves. And he's a great coach. Why is his name
Lance Leipold.
Leipold? I wanted to say Heupel, but similar. They're going to be fine the next couple of years. I mean, it doesn't help that what's his face is out.
Jalen Daniels. Yeah.
And I bet when he comes back, they'll probably win 1 or 2 of those games, and they'll make a bowl game. I'm just saying that there's a chance, and it's there. So that's
With
all I'm
every
saying about that.
passing week, especially with Daniels out, it's absolutely that defense will not be why they win games. It never really was, honestly. Maybe I think Duke scored on them when it will pretty much too. So it will be up to Jalen Daniels whenever he is healthy. I don't think he's out for the year, but I think he's out for a little
Yeah.
bit longer. He will need to guide them to another win as he did the first 5 weeks of the season. So
Yeah. So that's all I had left for pretty much football in general. I guess we can get into baseball. Unfortunately, our Braves did drop the NLDS to the Phillies. I am on the stand of the fact that they played a 3-game series before and Braves had 5 days off. It probably didn't help that much, but I mean, our offense did not produce at all. You can't, your offense can't produce when you have to go up against Nola and Wheeler. Like you have to show up for those games. Strider didn't look great. I mean, it's his first game back after not pitching for a couple of weeks. Charlie Morton's starting to kind of show his age. Max Fried was also pitching after being sick a couple weeks ago, the end of the season. So disappointing way for the season to end. But if it was just the Braves that had lost to their divisional opponents, I would have been a lot more upset. But the Mets didn't get past the wild card. The Dodgers lost to the Padres.
right.
The AL teams are New York, Houston, whatever. Like you saw those two happening. I believe Houston's going to win it all. So
Yeah. RIP to my Guardians. I said they win the series. They had every chance in the world to. Lost a decisive game 5 earlier tonight, unfortunately. Should have been played last night. Wasn't. That gave the Yankees the chance to pitch Nestor, and I think he was solid. I think it was 4-1 Yankees early. The Guardians answered with a run, and then whatever the final was not closer than
yard.
3. So
Giancarlo hit a 3-run homer. So
right. So I mean, it's Yankees Astros. Could have told me that in April. I'd have believed you. Now the NL being the Padres and Phillies, that's gonna be a series. I think the Phillies probably closed out game 1 2-0.
Yeah.
But
they won game 1. I would like for the Padres to win. I think it would
Same.
just be weird to see the Padres in the World Series.
Yeah,
I mean,
the talent on the roster, yes.
Yeah.
The Padres themselves, that's weird.
Yeah. Just the jerseys wouldn't look right in the fall. That's not a fall classic team.
No.
The Phillies are a fall classic team. We've seen them in the World Series before. I just don't want
absolutely. No, I would rather them not, too, because they have a couple of former Angels that decided to play much better when
just
they
like
departed,
Ohtani going to Japan.
as usual. Yeah, so I mean, baseball in full swing.
It's just
NBA
taking a
starts
backseat.
tonight. We're gonna start to sneak that in here at the end. These pods are gonna get longer as the football gets better. So won't have a ton for you. I'll be blogging things like that, but we do have one way to stay in touch with the NBA. I'll let Bailey explain that.
Yeah, we did. I figured it'd be fun to do like a little pod fantasy basketball league. We included BZ since he was a member of the house. We jumped on late last night to do this draft. We tried to Skype it, forgot to hit record, and we thought that Skype usually keeps just the calls in general, but unable to pull up anything. We might maybe email them somehow, see if we can pull something up. But yeah, I mean, we drafted our teams last night, 4-team league, so our teams are pretty stacked. We tweeted out a screenshot of each team with our roster, so you can go check that out at the 1009 on Twitter. We'll probably send out, we'll tweet out, talk about scoring updates, scheduling updates, standings, stuff like that. Any like trades, roster updates every now and then. So we'll definitely be keeping the listeners and our many followers in the loop with how this league goes. We'll probably hopefully come up with some sort of trophy, award, punishment, something like that, just to keep spice things up a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be chaotic. It's a 14 league, like you mentioned. So I've already boldly predicted Beasley's going to win the league. I stand by that just because of how you can't really predict this stuff, honestly, especially in a 14 league as stacked as waivers is and all that stuff. Yeah, I will take Beasley to win the league at probably 10-1 odds. But yeah, and then NBA wise, I am the resident NBA fan and consumer. I'm a Thunder fan, so I will not be very busy during the playoffs, but I will do my best to keep you guys up to date with the biggest stories of the week as we cycle through Mondays going forward. I did put out a blog previewing these first two games tonight because there's only two, and it's opening night, so that's on the website. You can get that through our Twitter at the 1009. Go check out our rosters. Let us know what you think about those. That's also on the Twitter, like Bailey said. And then I forgot to shout out Dustin Hopkins last night for playing through a hamstring injury, kicking 4 field goals, getting us that win with the game-winning kick in overtime. He's going to miss 2 to 4 weeks as a result of that injury. He could barely walk off the field, but very grateful for him. We've had some terrible kickers in the past, so it's nice to see one effective and gutting it out the entire game. Looked not comfortable, in pain, and he'll miss some time as a result. We have to figure something out in the meantime, but shout out to him for saving my sanity and finally ending that horrible game last night.
Yeah. And touching back on the uh, NBA, I'm gonna really have to make sure to be checking my lineups every now and then. Because I mean, you can set it for a weeks in advance, right?
Right.
Yeah, I had Jaylen Brown on my bench tonight, and
That's not the best strategy,
he
but
he went 35 points, had a couple of rebounds, assists, and blocks. So yeah,
that's a night.
that's 54 left on the bench, and I had Joel with 42. So it's definitely gonna be like I'm gonna have to figure out um how this actually works. Not like how it works, but like getting the feel for it with having an update almost daily. I tried doing fantasy baseball a couple times, and this is a long season, so
Right.
um, I'm also in another league with some friends, and I added Grayson as my second manager, so we'll definitely going to be taking that team to the championship. My draft just ended as we were kind of recording the podcast, so might keep you updated on that as well to see how me and him do with that.
Yeah, so that's that'll be a way we stay current on NBA, and then I'll probably be blogging more plenty. Might start putting out some betting picks here soon. Tough to do with the weekly stuff. I might sneak in the Slate show. I'll probably put out blogs as well, just with what I'm thinking night in,
Yeah,
night out, or
we could probably do like a week's worth of like favorite bets throughout the week, like
yeah, just
or
teams to
first
keep an
half of
eye
the
on,
week,
things like
second
that.
half of the week, weekend kind of stuff. We'll figure something out too.
Yeah,
Because
I will.
we
I will
like to
figure it out.
dabble.
Yeah, tonight was easy. 2 games, previewed them both. Kind of just talking about storylines heading in. Didn't do any predictions. I honestly thought Philly would steal one in Boston tonight, even with all the ceremonies surrounding Bill Russell and everything like that. But I was wrong. I think the Boston won 107-96 was that final. So big, impressive win for Boston to open the season. Harden had like 23 in the first half, not much in the second half. And then Jason Tatum ended up with 35, I think. So not too surprised there, honestly. But looking at Lakers Warriors right now, it's tied, 3 minutes left in the first quarter. So might be a little closer game there. Who knows? But yeah, first night of a long season, 82 games, and then of course the playoffs that run through mid-June. So we will have plenty more NBA to talk about.
Do you want to give just a quick off the rip prediction for the finals?
Yeah, I like the Bucks in the East. I think that a Bucks Celtics Eastern
That's yeah.
Conference Finals would be electric. It could very well go 7 again, like we saw last season from those teams. And out west, I'm honestly torn. I'd lean Denver, which is kind of out of left field, but if Jamal Murray can be 80% of himself pre-injury, Jokic, MVP right there, they're going to need a lot from some other guys that depth they didn't have last year that hurt them a lot. I don't think the Warriors run it back, even out of the West. I think it's just too competitive too many good teams. It's so hard to call it. In the East, you've got a pretty set top tier of teams. There's not much bleeding down below that. But in the West, there's honestly 5 or 6 teams that could come out of there. But I'll go with Denver. I'm gonna take the Bucks to win the title.
Give me out of the East. Bucks over the 76ers. Then I'm going to go with a healthy team, healthy Kawhi. Clippers.
I like that.
Clippers over the Nuggets. Give me the Clippers. Give me the Clippers to win it all.
I like that. Clippers win the title. Kawhi and Paul George leave, and the Thunder have their unprotected first-round pick next year. So that's perfect. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So yeah. We'll definitely tweet these out. We'll try and get Jacob's predictions too before we upload the pod, per usual, like Slate Show. But do you even have a clue who your MVP is going to be? I mean,
MVP. I would say Jokic if I'm gonna. I don't want to hedge my finals bet 30 seconds in, but yeah, I'll go Jokic. He's gonna be up there anyway. I think if Denver's a team I think they can be, they're a top 4 seed in the West, hosting the first round. Then I think it'll be Jokic.
I'll hedge mine. I'll go with give me Kawhi.
Again, if they're where we think they are, then he'll be up there for sure.
Yeah. That's our quick little preview for NFL. I know, like he said a couple times, Grayson will probably be able to dabble into it more. I'm vowing to be into NHL, NBA more, watching the Hornets a little bit. I know they ain't gonna be great. Shout out to my Kings. They follow me on Twitter. But yeah, I'm also we're also getting into NHL a little bit more this season. I drafted 2 fantasy teams just for the heck of it. But yeah. It's just it's sports, so it's something to put on, something to have background noise to. But yeah, go Canes.
Yeah, Canes 3-0 in the very young season. Got a big 5-1 win in Seattle last night. Very late. I didn't stay up for the whole thing, but yeah, we are in Edmonton Thursday. That's the next game. That's another late one. So unfortunately, East Coast team on the road still gets the late puck drops, but yeah, solid start for the Hurricanes, and yeah, they're expected to be one of the best teams in NHL this season, and so far they're showing it. So it's good to see early.
So yeah, definitely gonna keep in touch with those Hornets, Clemson, obviously college, NFL. We'll definitely do probably a World Series preview once it comes around next week or so. So stay on the lookout just for a lot of content coming out. Hopefully, we all obviously have the Slate Show on Thursday, so be sure to listen to that when it comes out on Friday. Yeah, bunch of content heading your way.
Yeah, and if you're listening to us, Apple or Spotify, please keep doing it. We're also on YouTube. The 10-9 podcast there.
Here's what I need y'all to do. I need y'all to hit subscribe, hit unsubscribe, hit subscribe again, hit unsubscribe again. Like it a couple times, unlike it. Like it a couple times, unlike it. Share it a couple times. Do that on all the platforms that you got. Do it on Twitter, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Do it all. We're trying to figure out the algorithm.
Yeah, we would enjoy notifications to be annoying. They're so frequent. So
yeah, make me turn off notifications.
Right. Yeah. Especially Twitter at the 1009. That's where you can find the links for all this stuff. NBA as we get into it, maybe NHL, fantasy basketball updates, all that good stuff will be there.
We'll catch y'all Thursday when we come back with you to the Slate Show.
Yeah, we will see you guys in a couple days.
Deuces.
Subscribe.